magic bullet. You cannot send a targeted hormone message to one part of the body and not the other. No matter where you administer the hormones, a vaginal ring or an implant in your arm, they all end up in the same place, and that's everywhere. So while for years there have been studies on the physical side effects, such as low libido, fluid retention, nausea, and even the more serious risks such as blood clots, heart attack, stroke, increased risk of cervical cancer, liver, and breast cancer. As Dr. Hill states in her book, there is still so much now just being discovered about how the birth control pill affects the brain and what it does to a woman as a person, her attractions, her relationship choices, and how she perceives the world. For example, in her book, she discusses several studies where the attractions of women who were naturally cycling were compared to those of contracepting women. In one study, the researchers diffused the pheromone sense, right? And pheromones are like this sixth sense that subconsciously attract us to genetically suitable partners. The naturally fertile woman more consistently chose the sense of men who were genetically superior, while the contracepting women chose males who were genetically less compatible. And then likewise, men's levels of testosterone increase around fertile women.
Our next speaker is Jackie Aguilar, who works with Natural Womanhood, which is a fertility awareness group, I guess you would say. And then she will tell you more about her organization and what she does. Jackie Aguilar. Oh, the clicker.
Thanks. Thanks. So I'm supposed to share a little bit about what contraception does to women's bodies and what women are told, and then kind of help explain these other natural options that Natural Womanhood is so passionate about sharing with the world. So my journey into knowledge of fertility started with my experience as a young, engaged woman, and I was excited about these ideas of love and making love. And my husband, he was a lieutenant, or well, my now husband, but he was a lieutenant in the Army, and he was super fit, and he looked great in his uniform. And so we did our best to save physical intimacy for marriage, but with all this desire and attraction, it was really difficult. But like so many women today, I had very little information about my choices when it came to for family planning. So a month before our wedding, I got on the birth control pill. And by the time we got to our wedding day and went on our honeymoon, I just experienced this dramatic change. All the desire and attraction that I'd had for my husband was gone. And instead, I felt no desire for my husband. And intimacy was like almost awkward when it never had been before. So all the hopes and dreams I had for this incredible physical intimacy after marriage weren't happening for me. And 5 months later, we were still struggling with these same frustrations, but it was a new year, and we decided we wanted to have a baby. The moment I went off the pill, it was like a light switch. All of a sudden, all that desire and attraction returned, and I was able to see my husband again for the man that I loved and that I was attracted to, and my mind cleared, and I felt like myself again. So knowing what I know now, my experience isn't that uncommon. There's now vast research into how the artificial hormones in contraception affect not just fertility, but anywhere in the body that has hormone receptors, which is everywhere. There are also countless personal accounts of women who describe similar experiences of drastic changes in their mood, behavior, focus, anxiety, and stress due to their use of hormonal contraception. The hormones in the reproductive cycle are in a delicate balance with all the other hormones in the endocrine system, and it involves precise communication between the brain and the pituitary gland and the reproductive organs. Here's what a normal cycling woman, the first chart at the top, what her hormones look like typically across the menstrual cycle. The top portion is the hormones that come from the pituitary gland, and then the bottom portion, it shows how the estrogen rises before ovulation, and then after ovulation, progesterone is the dominant hormone. On the bottom chart, you can see this is what hormones of a woman are when she's using hormonal birth control. So her hormones are suppressed, her natural production of hormones are suppressed, and the artificial progestin in the contraceptive mimics the high levels of progesterone in the second half of the cycle to prevent her from progressing towards ovulation. When the reproductive hormones are out of balance in this unnatural way, it changes the entire physiology of the woman. The birth control pill works to prevent pregnancy by several mechanisms of action. First, it inhibits ovulation by suppressing the hormones. Second, it thickens the cervical mucus to prevent the sperm from entering. Third, it delays the ovum and sperm transport. And finally, it inhibits implantation by thinning the lining of the uterine wall. So this last mode of action is important to be aware of if you believe that life begins at conception. These changes over time have potential to do harm to the cervix, the endometrium, and a woman's natural ability to produce hormones. Aside from the targeted intent of preventing pregnancy, there's many unintended effects on women. In a recent book titled How the Pill Changes Everything, Dr. Sarah E. Hill, she's a social psychology professor, makes the statement that there's no magic bullet. You cannot send a targeted hormone message to one part of the body and not the other. No matter where you administer the hormones, a vaginal ring or an implant in your arm, they all end up in the same place, and that's everywhere. So while for years there have been studies on the physical side effects, such as low libido, fluid retention, nausea, and even the more serious risks such as blood clots, heart attack, stroke, increased risk of cervical cancer, liver, and breast cancer, as Dr. Hill states in her book, there is still so much now just being discovered about how the birth control pill affects the brain and what it does to a woman as a person, her attractions, her relationship choices, and how she perceives the world. For example, in her book, she discusses several studies where the attractions of women who were naturally cycling were compared to those of contracepting women. In one study, the researchers diffused the pheromone sense, right? And pheromones are like this sixth sense that subconsciously attract us to genetically suitable partners. The naturally fertile woman more consistently chose the sense of men who were genetically superior, while the contracepting women chose males who were genetically less compatible. And then likewise, men's levels of testosterone increase around fertile women. And it has been shown in studies that men are more attracted to fertile women who have high estrogen levels versus women who are contracepting and have suppressed levels. So what this means is that women may make different relationship choices when they are on the pill. Who she's attracted to and who's attracted to her, may be dramatically different depending on her current hormonal state. A woman who meets her partner while on the pill and then stops taking it at some point in the future may come to realize that she is not as attracted to her partner as she thought because she's no longer in this chemically altered state. So women are not informed of many of these side effects before they're prescribed birth control. If a woman is suffering from a cycle irregularity, they're told the pill will regulate their cycle, when in fact we saw that it just suppresses the natural cycle. Women are told they don't need a period, it's perfectly natural not to have one. When women express their concerns about mood changes, anxiety, depression, they're told these experiences aren't real and are just in their head or they aren't important. Women are told they can get pregnant from any active intercourse at any time during the month, and which scares them into staying on birth control pill, but that's not scientifically true. Most doctors do not recommend natural methods of family planning because all the common sources of information, like the CDC, give these natural methods a 23% failure rate. And that may have been true of something old like the rhythm method, but science and research has come a long way since. The 23% number is old and it's inaccurate information that's still passed along to women by their doctors. Thanks to petitions from Natural Womanhood and FACTS, another organization, they're both nonprofits whose mission is to accurately educate women and medical professionals about these natural methods. The CDC has updated their data to also include the 2% failure rate of some of these modern methods. Hormonal birth control is unique among other drugs in the medical world, I guess maybe now with these other hormones that they use, but because they artificially alter the endocrine system when there's no pathology or illness being treated. Instead, it's used to break a healthy functioning system in the body. Dr. Hilgers is, did I go back? Oh, maybe it's not there. Oh, I already, okay. Oh, and there's the CDC rating, sorry. So Dr. Hilgers He's an OBGYN professor, founder of a new women's health science called NAPRO technology, or Natural Procreative Technology, who has practiced and researched in this area for 50 years. He stated, in most areas of medicine, it is still important to make a diagnosis of what the underlying issue might be that's causing the patient's symptoms. This has changed dramatically in the last 50 years when it comes to the reproductive health of women. Birth control pills are prescribed for almost any abnormality of the menstrual cycle, but they treat nothing. They suppress the cycle, suppress fertility, at times destroy fertility, while at the same time doing very little to try to find out what is causing the problem to begin with. It is a counterproductive and counterintuitive approach to the health care of women. And then he adds, in the IVF centers, the cause of the infertility problem is not evaluated, so it is also not treated. So hormonal birth control pill exposes women to health risks and can mask fertility problems while only providing temporary symptom relief. So are there other family planning options women need to be made aware of that are healthy and holistic? Yes, I kind of alluded to that. So modern methods of fertility awareness, or natural family planning, are completely natural, hormone-free options based on scientific research that are 98 to 99% effective at helping couples avoid pregnancy. These are some of the common modern methods that are used. I've even met some women that teach Billings in this room, and Creighton is something I teach, and my husband together, and I teach symptothermal. These effectiveness rates are the same, or in some cases even better than conventional methods. These methods allow, and here's, in comparison, some of the more conventional methods, and they have about the same effectiveness rates. These methods also allow for more accurate diagnosis and treatment of root causes of the reproductive health issues, from PMS to polycystic ovarian syndrome to infertility. Women and couples learn to observe the fertile signs of the woman's body and use this information to know when they are fertile. With this knowledge and education, they can avoid pregnancy by avoiding intercourse during the 3 to 6 day fertile window that the couple has every cycle. And unlike contraception, you don't have to stop using it to achieve a pregnancy. How do I make it move? A couple whose goal is to achieve a pregnancy,
What's the matter?
I don't know, it's okay, would choose a day of fertility for intercourse. See, just the hearts are on different days to achieve a
there it
pregnancy.
is.
There it is.
Just slow.
Yeah, that's fine. These methods also empower women to understand the changes her body naturally experiences throughout the cycle and use this self-awareness to attain her goals. So for example, the United States women's national soccer team had 23 of their players track their cycle as they approached the World Cup. And they used this data to tailor their nutrition intake, their sleep, and their recovery time during the phases of their cycle. The board-certified OBGYN ABC News chief medical correspondent, Dr. Jennifer Ashton, she stated, "The fact is, female athletes are biologically, hormonally, and physically different. And the sooner that reality is embraced instead of resisted, the more potential exists for that athlete to optimize her training behaviors." And then she went on, she said, "The women of the United States women's soccer team are the latest reminder that women are capable of so much, not to emulate men, but because our unique and powerful bodies are triumphs in themselves." So cool. So medically, women can use their charts as diagnostic tools, and they can be read by NAPRO-trained doctors and other medical professionals that understand these methods. So I have some examples here. Point over there. There you go.
There you go.
Of biomarkers in a chart that can indicate different reproductive health issues. The first cycle on that line there, that first line, indicates a woman that may be suffering from infertility. She has very limited cervical mucus, which you need for the sperm to get to the egg. So if she only marks, see, 2 yellow days of that, then that would indicate very low chances of her being able to achieve. The second cycle shows a very short post-peak. A very short post-peak phase was a sign of a high risk of miscarriage. The third cycle shows several days of premenstrual spotting, and that can be an indication of low progesterone. And then the fourth line is abnormal bleeding. That could be an indication of hormonal dysfunction or even cancer. So this knowledge is easy to learn, yet vital to our health. And because it requires that the burden of fertility is shared by the couple, the women in studies report feeling more respected and less used. Couples who practice these natural methods have a very low divorce rate, and in one study, the divorce rate was as low as 2%. The issue of contraception is a root factor in much of the fallout of the sexual revolution. 54% of women who have an abortion were using contraception in the cycle they conceived. Since the introduction of the birth control pill in 1960, the divorce rate has risen right alongside the rise in use of birth control. The idea that sex can be a normatively sterile act has paved the way for the acceptance of homosexuality. And I remember Dr. Morris's insightful statement last year at this summit on how the use of hormones on transgender children is not the first time that we've altered the endocrine system to meet a social goal. In the case of birth control, the goal is unlimited sex without babies, and it's the woman's body, her health, and her relationships that suffer.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you very much.